you can call open or liberal, I don't care. It basically embraces the new values. It interprets Christianity or interprets Judaism or it interprets Islam in a what? In a more liberal fashion. And by liberal, I don't mean liberal on economic issues. I simply, okay. And what it has the following values. There is value to happiness and fulfillment in this world. 2, women have the same rights as men. 3, the best form of government is not authoritarian, it is democratic. And the 4th is openness. My background and my religion doesn't have all the answers. And there may be some wisdom in somebody else's. And I'm willing to what? I'm willing to listen. I mean, there might be something interesting, right? Oh, my. Now, if you look at the religious world today as a result of this revolution, the line in religion is no longer vertical. It's no longer Judaism, Christianity, Islam. It's horizontal. Liberal Jews can talk more easily to liberal Christians than they can talk to what? Orthodox Jews. Liberal Christians can talk more easily, do you understand, to a liberal Muslim than they can talk to a fundamental. I mean, that's the dividing line. If you're on one side of the dividing line, then you what? Then you have the new value system and you are critiquing whatever your history, your tradition, whatever it is with those new values, ethical values. And if you reject the new values, then you are what we call fundamentalist. Fundamentalist says, no, the primary reward in life is always what? In the next life. No, women do not have what? Equal rights with men. They have a what? A special role in society defined by tradition. No, democratic systems are not the best of all systems. Systems run by the clergy are the best of all systems, and quite frankly, I don't have to read anything you write. I can blow it all up because everything I need for my salvation, I have in my group. Now that split has caused a fundamental ethical problem in the world because they're two incompatible systems. And the ethics of one group is not the same as the ethics of the other. And if we'll take 5 minutes, I want to come. What I'd like to do is, first of all, talk about the moral virtues of fundamentalist religion. That is, it is certainly true that there are ethical and moral values in fundamentalist religion that are, given the new value system, worthwhile, all right? And that's one of the reasons why they succeed, because part of their propaganda is an appeal to people to say, your lives are falling apart, society is falling apart, and we're going to give you a structure that isn't new, that is old, that will restore moral virtue. Okay. So it's what we often do in denouncing enemies is that we always put all the good points on one side and all the what? The bad points on the other. That's not true in this case. One of the reasons for their success in the world, why they can recruit people, is precisely because they have virtues. One of the strongest values that they provide is in a world of personal choice, where people can choose to be totally and absolutely selfish. Do you understand? One of the values they emphasize is family responsibility. It is not a bad value. Not a bad value. And one of the reasons for the strength of the Christian right in this country is precisely that. Because it isn't true that once you get your personal freedom, you're going to use your freedom well. You may make rotten choices. Not only rotten for yourself, they may be rotten for your family and for your community. All right, so? The second is it offers sexual discipline. We are now in what I call a sexually obsessed society. I mean, you can't walk anywhere in some places without bumping into a sexually provocative advertisement. I mean, do I want billboards on Woodward in a free society with people engaged in sexual intercourse on my way down to the symphony? The answer is no, I do not. The emphasis on sexual discipline, I mean, the statement, they go the other way, but the statement that sex and sexual activity is not the be-all and end-all of life is, I think, a positive influence. The third is poverty relief. You can look at Egypt or Pakistan. In Egypt, we had a socialist government under Gamal Abdel Nasser that featured corrupt bureaucrats who couldn't dispense a drop of decent welfare, and where the people went to get their soup was the mosque. And they do the same in Pakistan. And sometimes when it comes to poverty relief, many of these organizations do far more very practical work than a lot of people who regard themselves as liberals in suburbia, right? Who certainly wouldn't be prepared to go to the jungles of Ecuador to open up a clinic. So I respect that work. But I may not like the message, but I respect the work, and for me, people are not only their messages are also their behavior, right? That's a message, all right? And one of the positive things in a world where individualism is leaving so many lonely people, one of the things that fundamentalist religion has provided are intense support groups for people. They join that fundamentalist church, they got somebody there what? When they're sick, when somebody dies, whatever else, they are there. You can't build the same kind of support system out of the symphony crowd. I'm not sure that if I meet somebody in the foyer at the symphony or the opera, that I can call them up, do you understand, to bring me soup. So now there are certain issues here where we have to critique. Do you understand? We've got two value systems here, both religious, but they're two value systems. And you simply can't say religion and morality. You have to say, well, here is the value system I subscribe to. Now let me look at the behavior of religion and let's see whether it conforms or doesn't conform. Clergy power. Iran, is that a moral government? Is a government run by a person who says he's the deputy of God, that allows no real democratic participation because he keeps vetoing any decent law or any law passed by the overwhelming majority of its parliament? Do you regard that clergy power under our value system or this new value system as moral? Female exclusion. Somebody said to me the other day, well, you know, people can make their choices. If the system wants to cover women in bushel baskets, and they consent to it. Consent's very interesting. Distinguishing between consent and intimidation is not is not always easy. The things we choose to do are always in a social context. Do the people approve or don't approve, right? I mean, that's how we make choices. We're not lone individuals making choices. Do I regard the exclusion of women, their veiling and covering up and separation and essential powerlessness, do I regard that as moral? The answer is no. Now, that's not the nice thing to say at the interfaith banquet. You understand? Not the nice thing to say. To me, it's immoral. Given the value system, which I subscribe to, the ethical system which I subscribe to, it's immoral. And I won't be bullied into saying that it is because I want to be what? Want to be nice. Scriptural education. Taking a child and saying, as they do in Pakistan, or in parts of the Muslim world and even parts of the Christian world, or the Jewish world, and saying, you can get all the wisdom you need just by studying the Quran. Is that stunting the growth of a child? Is it? No. Well, no, the question I'm asking, given this new value system, I'm not critiquing it. I'm not critiquing it from the fundamentalist value system because what? Obviously, it's okay. I'm simply asking, given our value system, is it immoral? See, we hesitate to use that word because it's such a strong word. But a child, in order to function decently in a world in which we have a global humanity, needs more information. Excommunication. Do you think kicking somebody out of a group for ideological reasons so that they cannot speak anymore to their mother or their father, do you understand? Do you regard that behavior as moral? I mean, cruel. So we talk about excommunication. I want to tell you that in large parts of the third world and even in parts of the first world, this exists. People are expelled from their communities because they fail to conform. And in fact, their families are told to have nothing at all to do with them. In my book, immoral. Martyrdom. Encouraging people to kill themselves. Especially children. I mean, are you getting? Now, obviously, from this other system, it's what? It's moral. That's the whole point of this presentation, because we never get this perspective. From my perspective, immoral. There are times, by the way, when obviously within our system or this system, martyrdom is appropriate. In the Second World War, when we were fighting what? Fascism, okay? And indeed, we were dealing with a monstrous system that needed to be defeated. If somebody went to war and died, and when you do that, by the way, there's the risk of what? You're now drafting people, conscripting people, and you what? You're sending them out. It's a form of martyrdom if they get killed. It's not always the case that when you sacrifice your life for a cause, it's what? It's not. But to solicit the innocent. All right. Clerical celibacy. And that leads me back to the problem of the Roman Catholic Church, which I talked about in a lecture before, but it's certainly part of this issue. I mean, part of the problem in the church is they will die from having no clergy because they have arranged for a system which can recruit nobody in modern times to sign up. Depriving the institution of what? The best and the brightest and the smartest of the people who most likely could nurture the system. And it was all right when you had large numbers of people lining up, but that didn't work because we can see in the Middle Ages, you are asking something of men that most likely they are incapable of enforcing, which is what? You may have a certain percentage, but a high percentage of the people who would make very, very good clergy ultimately fail at the discipline. So that raises the question, is it moral to ask people to do what they are generally incapable of doing? See, is it moral to tease people and say, pick up that rock? Well, the rock's 3 tons. Well, so if you can't do it, then you're what? Can't make it. The caste system. Well, I mean, we always have to be very careful when we talk about Hinduism, don't we? We always talk about the fundamental values, but I'm not talking about what's in those little books that say comparative religion. I'm talking about visiting India. That is, the culture divided people up into essentially ethnic and racial groups, each one of which had a professional role. And mixing with a group below you is what? Wrong and immoral. Now, certainly Nehru and Gandhi and all these people declared it what? Immoral, and I think now they passed all these laws, but I do want to tell you, if you open up the Times in Bombay and look at the ads, there are, I counted once, there were 500 ads in the paper of men asking for brides who were lighter than them. Oh, it's a really, do you understand what is that moral? Blind obedience. Oh. Well, maybe, if you're in the middle of a war, whatever, and you got a commander of the troop, the company, and you got a decision has to be made. But on the whole, is it a virtue to obey without asking questions? In fact, people who don't ask questions can endanger themselves and the people for whom they are responsible. Birth control or anti-birth control. Well, maybe in North America now with the birth rates declining, what? It's not an issue. But in many parts of the third world, I mean, India has now reached to what? It's over 1 billion people. How are you going to find the resources to take care of the populations that are there? Punishments. If I go to northern Nigeria now, the wonderful states in northern Nigeria have now voted to make Sharia, the traditional Muslim law, the fundamental law of the state. Even Christians are subjected to it. So do you think adulteresses should be placed up against a wall and stones? They should be stoned to death. Do you think that thieves should have their right hands cut off? I mean, by the way, these things are happening. They're happening in that Muslim fundamentalist world, and all we're supposed to say with the interfaith response is, oh, well, that's their system. This is, give me a break. What is called sexual deviation. Are these people to be burned? Or do you dig a hole in the ground and you leave only the head sticking out? And they cut it off. You say, well, that couldn't happen. This is Bloomfield Hills. Polygamy. Oh. Keep hearing about cases from Utah, but polygamy. After all, one of the things about Western culture that was significant coming out of the Greco-Roman world was the evolution of monogamy, which reinforced the dignity of women. All right, all right. Infidel removal. That's Indonesia. Blow them up. We are the truth. We are the way. God is with us. Moral? See, they're always trying to claim the moral side. We're the representatives of the moral side. We're trying to rescue the world from the decay of Western culture. Most of the values that I'm using as a critique now came out of what? This culture that they keep denouncing. Exclusive wisdom. Is it moral to encourage people to believe that there is only wisdom to be found in their own narrow religious system and there is no wisdom to be found outside? Is that moral to do so? Is it moral to say, I have the only path? Well, if I have the only path, and the reward at the end is that I get into heaven, then the consequence of that is I better suppress all other information, because if people listen to the other information, they'll take the wrong path. So what are the implications of this? Well, the first is that today in the world of religion, basically, we have two ethical systems. Do you understand? And they can't talk to each other, unfortunately. But it is very important for us to know that simply by saying the word religion, you don't guarantee, certainly for most of us, moral or ethical. And in fact, the behavior of organized religion deserves a very serious, a continuing, serious ethical critique that doesn't deny the ethical values and ethical good works that have come out of organized religion through the century. Right? Okay. But the critique is necessary. There are two systems, and now I want to conclude by referring back to something I said last week. I said one of the fundamental problems of ethics, there are essentially two. One is, how do I negotiate between my concern for my own happiness and my own welfare and my concern for the welfare of the group or groups to which I belong. Right? And we're always struggling with that. They're dumping on me. Well, what am I supposed to do? The second, which most people don't talk about, is what is my priority list of groups? I'm a member of the family. Am I nice only to members of my family and the outside are infidels? My neighborhood? Is it only my nation? Or have we now reached a stage in human development where if we don't develop what we call a global mentality, a global ethic, we will die? Well, if that's what we're trying to develop, then systems of religion that call for infidel removal are totally and absolutely subversive. We are committed to a world in which people of diverse cultures and diverse opinions can live together, and the only way they can live together is if people believe that they may have some truth, but they don't have the what? The whole truth. Because if you believe you've got the what? The whole truth and nothing but the truth, and nobody, and those people over there don't, you can't build this group, this global humanity that we need in the age of the global economy. Can't build it. So I want to go back to Indonesia, where I started. Right? I was appalled by two things. I was appalled by the casualties, and I can't stop thinking about it. It's just this beautiful, if you've been there, this beautiful, gorgeous Bali with all these young people, this whole thing, and this tale of horror. And the second is the arrogance of people who think that by killing these people, they are doing something right. That frightens me and terrifies me. And in fact, that's one of the challenges we are now facing in the world at the beginning of the 21st century. Thank you very, very much.